we're live. Oh, look, I know we're live now. Imagine that. Hello, everybody. It is Friday. I think it's January 23rd or something like that. 2026, right around noon Eastern. So you know what that means. It means it's a small biz breakdown. I'm Brent Leary. I have to say, I'm kind of happy. My Rams won. Almost took the life out of me, but they did win. So we have another game. My only hope is that I actually get to see the game, because that would mean I would still have power in my house and heat. Because we know this storm of the decade, I don't know what they're calling it, is like going to impact everybody from Texas to, I think, like Maine or whatever, with a special icy appearance in the southeast here. So we will hope that I will get a chance to see my team and see them win. Otherwise, I don't mind a power outage. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about. I never know what, but there's always a lot to talk about. And joining me in this Gab Fest, I don't know what we call this thing, all the way from Oregon, is Leland from Oregon. I think I've already given you a new last name. From Oregon seems to be your last name.
From Oregon. There could be worse names out there.
No, that's true. How's the weather out your way?
It is beautiful. So if the Rams are playing a home game, maybe they, won't have to deal with all of that muck and mush or anything like that.
No, we're playing in Seattle there, Leland.
It's still not too bad. I think the weather over there is fair.
It's better than the 10-degree weather they had in Chicago last week. So, and apparently the weather in Chicago now is better than that. Because no, not better. It's colder. -8 degrees in Chicago right now, with a wind chill of -40 apparently. So I'm glad we got out of there when we get. Moving along, making our regular pit stop now in the Gary, Indiana. We like. I was gonna say we like Gary. No, I'm not gonna do that. It is the one and only person I know in Gary, other than the Jacksons, but I don't really know them. Pierre. Say your last name, Pierre.
Du Bois.
There it is. I felt a Dubois coming out, so I was like,
"That's all right." I'll tell you one thing. I've got people now messing up the Pierre. I'm hearing more Perry than anything else, and it's a little bit of a generation thing. A little bit. I don't want to say that, but it kind of is.
Well, like a Gen Z and below is Perry now.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm like, there is a Pierre, South Dakota. So I mean,
isn't that the capital of South Dakota?
Yes.
Guess they've never been to South Dakota.
Yeah.
Anyway, how's the weather where you are?
Cold. It's in the negatives. I don't think it's quite -8. We're like -1. But to be honest with you, when you look at the Apple, you look at the weather, it's like negative, like for each hour, -1, -1, 0, 1.
Ooh,
2,
a heat wave.
1. It's expected to be in the negative spot tonight. So we're going to be really cold for not just like this weekend, but probably into next week, like for a long time. So
that is cold.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Yeah. And I have a dental appointment in the afternoon. So I'm glutton for punishment. So what can I say?
And still you're able to smile through all that.
Yeah.
That's why we like you there, Pierre. So we're gonna traverse a little bit further east in that place, that magical place, that mystical place, mystical Medina, with the one and only Evana Taylor.
Hey, I'm in Cleveland, probably just like Pierre. This is like nothing for us. It is a balmy 9 degrees. I have already had half a day, and it's lovely. It's good to see you all.
So we have Leland. What was the temperature out there again?
31.
Wow. That's
and
really
where are you at? What's the temperature where you are in Atlanta?
Oh, right. Well, today is fine. Today, I think we might have just hit 50. Let me see.
Ooh.
51. Woo!
That is just shorts weather.
Yeah.
Right, Pierre?
Yep.
Too
bad weather.
For Midwesterners, that is some shorts weather.
Hey,
Shorts with the flip flops.
With the
okay, but what you got the wife beater T-shirt too? I mean,
like a concert tee, probably, and a hat and a ball cap.
Well, I would love my weather to stand up over the weekend, but that 51 was going to turn into like a 20, and we'll get into the teens by Tuesday morning, apparently, or something like that. But yes, we are one of those regions where it's not the fun snow; it's going to be the ice that we get, apparently. So we are hunkering down. All right. Now, usually I would traverse to our nation's capital and then go to the vacation capital of the galaxy or something like that, then round it back home to Atlanta. But we are missing three of our compadres: Shashi, Mr. Smile Shashi, that is, Ramon Ray, the poster child for New Jersey. What is it called? Vacationing or something like that?
Yep. Vacation center.
Vacation. And the cold one, the bold one, and since he's not here, I'll say it, the old one, John Lawson, are off doing their thing. Hopefully we will see them next week. Hopefully you'll see me next week, because that cold and that freezing weather stuff is not going to be a joke. Anyway, you know what I forgot to do last week that I've done for like over a year with you guys?
What's up?
I didn't get a chance, or I just didn't ask you how you guys are feeling. You didn't even miss that, did you?
No, we didn't.
Well,
I to talk about.
There was a lot to talk about. So once again, I don't know how much you have paid attention to the World Economic Development Conference out in Davos. Matter of fact, when you tell me how you're doing, I also tell me, do you pay attention to that? Whoever wants to go first.
I say yes and no. Yes, just to keep up, but no, as in it's not. It's more drama from Trump, so I'm not really like. I'm kind of like, okay, this is drama number category number 6, number 222-3755, and I just put it in my mind like that and keep right on rolling.
So that's a no for the most part.
Yeah.
Even are you a Davos kind of person? Do you?
No, I think I'm right in there with Pierre a little bit. I do. I've given up paying attention to a lot of these things because everything is so pre-programmed and performative, and I'm glad that they are taking care of themselves. I think that's really important because we need to make sure that all of those people at the very top are really taken care of. I do, when you ask me in what ways does this impact small business, that's how it will impact small business. Whatever they determine is going to do well for them and those powers that be, the royal they.
I like that.
The royal they, there is such a thing as the royal we. I'm going to call this the royal they, those people who decide things that ultimately impact us, who we want to make sure that they're taken care of, the royal they.
What do you think about the royal they there, Leland?
Hey, to even this point, they're important. They, have a lot of sway in what happens. I don't necessarily think that, too much is going to happen to the point where like big, massive things are going to happen to where, a big crash is going to happen or necessarily like a big resurgence is going to be happening. And I think that, if you're a small business owner and you're following this, every little detail, you're just going to drive yourself mad. You're going to go crazy. And so for me personally, I'm like, unless, some big eruption happens to where people are like, all of a sudden pulling out and drawing lines. And then all of a sudden, like, half of Europe is now someone we can't sell to or buy stuff from. think it's going to matter too much.
Did you? Yeah, I'll ask it. Did you hear any of the speech from the Canadian Prime Minister? What did you think of what he said?
What did he say?
I saw Eva shaking her head, so I thought.
I heard some of it, and I think that's what I was thinking of when I was making my comments, which is like these things, like people go to these things and they say things, and everybody was talking about it. I think the one that everyone's the bit of the speech that everyone's talking about is this idea that for I think he was mentioning, World War II Europe or something, where you're putting a sign in the door, like everyone is just being compliant, even though they know that the systems have not been what we would hope that they were, and people just being compliant, and that the time for compliance is over. I don't know what he was trying to say, but like I kind of, if there's anything that the last 10 years have taught us about communicating, is that people really need to use small words and say what there is to say in the simplest words possible. And I think he came the closest, and so everybody's talking about it.
Well, he didn't come out and say who directly he was referring to, but everybody knew who he was referring to.
This is my point. I think that if people, I think there's very little time, money, resources, or energy to be putzing around with what you mean. Your audience and your customers want you to say what you mean. They've told us that over and over again. Say what you mean what you say, and you've got to find a way to show proof of that. That's an old manufacturing thing, right, Pierre? We remember that, right? Say what you do what you say, show me the proof. Those things are, I think, becoming very important. And I don't think regular people, especially small business owners who are busy trying to figure out cash flow, have time for that kind of stuff. I just saw, was it an Intuit study that said small business owners have $17,000 each in arrears in accounts receivable. That's the average.
Yeah.
So
how would they not know that? I mean, how would a small business be able to accumulate that kind of arrears and not feel it?
I didn't say they didn't know it or feel it. This is like, an Intuit thing. So they know it. And of course, Intuit is going to sell them for a fee, a service, to recoup some of that. How lucky. How nice. I'm so glad that
that sounds like a good business. If it, I don't know how much it's going to cost, but I'm guessing it won't be that much. I mean, but if it gets you 17,000 that you might not have gotten,
you're not going to get the 17,000, right? What is that? A bird in the hand? You'll get something, and you'll pay a fee for that something.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to work that out in my head.
Is that something you'd be interested in personally for your business?
I don't know. I believe in good contracts that are clear and explained very clearly. And I believe in following up with people and making sure you get paid. I put systems in place to make sure that my costs are covered on that first payment, so that if something goes wrong, I'm not going to cry over what has gone wrong. But, I'm not a retail business. I'm not a lot of these businesses that maybe have like, you have to buy things, inventory and stuff like that.
Have any of you ever had like trouble getting paid from a person or a business?
Oh yeah.
Who hasn't, right?
Yeah.
Who hasn't? We've all been there. You learn from that, right?
I've actually gone as far as telling people, whenever I've done workshops in the past or any sort of panel, telling folks that you should expect something that will go awry. It's important. I think if you're a small business, small business owners starting a business is aspirational, as it should be, but the negative that can happen is that you can anticipate or expect at least one or two customers somewhere along the way to go wrong. I had one customer I lost, and to this day, I'll be honest with you, I'm still when I think about him, I'm still in that, get my Timberlands and go after you type mode. And it really wasn't a lot of money. It was the idea that even when he was having problems and we worked out a plan for him, he didn't follow any of the plan. And it was one of those things where it was a personal problem that was behind it. Basically, he was in Japan. We were trying to work out a business plan for him that included some recommendations on analytics, and he just wasn't paying anybody. And I think the problem that it's kind of hard to have that conversation with your customers, because small business owners, there's a tendency to be a little reluctant to say, hey, we're going out of business. Sometimes it's because it's a little bit of incompetence. There's something going on in the business that they feel embarrassed about. It could be, to be honest with you, even further, it could just be a domino effect where they had a bad vendor that's messing them up, and now they have to turn to you and say, oops, we've messed up. And that unfortunately happens. And I think that's a difficult thing, because particularly if you're remote, you just don't know you don't know all the reasons behind it. You just know that you're not getting paid. And I think that could be a dark side that happens. I just tell people, be ready for that at some level, and imagine what the payment cycle is and how that's being handled. That helps keep you grounded, I think.
Leland, what do you got on this?
It can be trouble. I've not ran into too many companies, because I'm more of a B2B kind of, like I sell to businesses, and I've not ran into too many businesses that just like outright refuse to pay or anything like that. But they do come up every so often. Basically we just hound them until they pay. But you got to be, as a smaller business, you got to be comfortable with the idea of, really putting the pressure on your customer. Like if you're a construction individual and it's like, well, you did like half upfront, half at the end or something like that. You may have to be comfortable with collections. You may have to put liens on houses, those kinds of situations, and it's going to stink. No one wants to be the person that's like, oh, I need my money, twirling a mustache, and it's like, I'm going to put a lien on your house, I'm coming for every dollar. But you're in a business to make money. You have to be willing to do those kinds of things. My father-in-law, when he tried to do automotive, he tried to run his own business, and he was terrible because he wouldn't charge what he was worth, or he would just be like, oh, we'll trade favors or something like that. And his family suffered as a result of that, because he couldn't put himself in that position to where it's like, I've got to ask for money, I've got to push for money. And so that's just something, if you're going to be going into business, you have to be comfortable doing, and it's not for everybody.
And selling to enterprise, I'm sorry, Pierre, I just wanted to, because I know that Brent and Leland have this situation. When you're selling to large enterprise organizations and their payment terms tend to be long.
Yep.
Right. Most small businesses, I know I do, I pay in my 30 days. I pay my vendors in 30 days. I pay fast, but I get, depending on who it's from, but if it's a large enterprise organization, it could be 60 days, 90 days. I've had 120 returns. That is horrible.
120 days?
I have had that in the past. Never. And so, like I said, so I'm sorry, Pierre, go right ahead.
No, you brought up a good point, and also with Leyland too, I think is a good point. It's it can be a little tricky if it's a favorite client. It could be one that, like, hey, they've been consistent one year. They can fall behind the next year for something. And it is an awkward conversation. In fact, a lot of times you do need to separate yourself with somebody who can kind of handle those late payments, because it's just the demeanor changes. You don't want, again, you don't want someone lacing up their Timberlands, but then trying to shake your hand the next time and say, it's kind of hard to have that duality. Basically, it's almost like the Incredible Hulk, and it's hard to deal with people at that point. But I think Leyland brought up a good point, and even brought up a good point about, just be aware. And it can be difficult because you don't know if that's a temporary problem or if it's something that's major, and it really becomes a big deal if it's somebody who is bringing in the lion's share of support for you. but do try to work out with people first. I think that's definitely more important. And you sometimes you can hang on to those clients and get things resolved and get moving, but it is difficult.
To me, this sounds like a use case that small businesses could get behind. If you're saying you're not getting your money, AI may be able to help you get your money.
I was hoping, that was the one thing that I wanted to see in that study. And that was something, now I have to admit, I use QuickBooks, I use Intuit QuickBooks. And so that's something I really want to look at and see, Leland is always bringing this up every single week about how these tools often will have an AI feature. And that is a wonderful way to wrap your head around using AI to do some of those difficult tasks. I have done it the old fashioned way. I blame my CPA for most things, right? I do a couple things on my invoicing and my contract and also blame my CPA. But as a shy person or someone who doesn't like confrontation, one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten is to put things in writing inside your contract, put things inside your system, explain those things before they become a problem, and make sure that people understand that this is how it is. So like if you can front load those conversations and create a system around it, and when all else fails, just blame your CPA and say, my CPA is really hounding me for this because I have to get this wrapped up like by the end of the month or by the end of the quarter or by the end of the year. They need this wrapped up.
Has any of you ever used AI to help write your contract or your statement of work?
I haven't, but I'm actually looking at. We have a working agreement that's been. I had a friend who's a lawyer who created this for me back when I first started out. Worked very well, and I used it to give like have a statement of work saying that after we've talked, this is what we agreed to. Here's the quote and price. I'm actually looking into seeing if I can make an adjustment on it, just because some of the legal framing is upfront. And I think sometimes people are now a little bit they see that first before they see the statement of work. And I'm kind of seeing if I can make a healthy switch that might work out a little bit better for people to kind of say, hey, this is a little bit more upfront for them. But I haven't used AI directly, but I am looking at using Claude projects and seeing if there's some ideas that might update it a little bit easier for people.
Yeah, for the first time, somebody asked me for my rate sheet, and I hadn't really had to do one of those in a while because this is a new potential. So what I ended up doing was uploading 4 or 5 of my previous invoices and statement of works and all that kind of stuff with all the information, and I just uploaded them and said, "Make me a rate sheet, a 1-page rate sheet." And it did a really good job. I was like, damn, this is really, I only had to make a few little adjustments, and then I was like, there it goes. And I used Gemini. And the reason I use I'm really getting into Gemini for certain things. And although Claude is for coding, but Gemini is for a lot of other stuff. And then I got this, and I think I sent you guys this, I got on this Google beta for what I think they call it personal. It's either personal insights or personal something intelligence, personal intelligence. And they basically Google saying, hey, this is a new beta. Would you be interested in connecting all of your Google accounts to Gemini so that it could provide a more personalized experience when you're using Gemini and all that? Because basically it's almost sort of like your own personal LLM. So I was like, sure. I mean, you guys already got the data anyway, so so why not? I'm not, you know more about me than I knew at this point. And they kind of did, because after I joined, I said, okay, sure, let me try this out. And I connected all this stuff. Then I think I shared this with you guys too. After it went through the process of connecting and looking at all my stuff, it basically sent me a little, hey, Brenton, it's nice to know you. And now that I know even more about you, here are a few things that I'd like to share that about where your strengths are, or something like that. And it you could tell this thing went through all my Gmail, all my searches. I don't know if they're going to the YouTube stuff, whatever. Almost every kind of data I've created over there, several platforms. It rifled through all of that. I guess trained is the right word. And it told me some stuff. And I'm like, wow. And then the one that really blew me away is I uploaded a video clip, and because I like to use Gemini now for my clips, because it'll create a transcript, it'll analyze it, it knows every person who's speaking, so it's a very clean transcript. So once again, that's another thing, another piece of content or data that I've loaded up that it's using. So I just, the clip was about, small businesses and tech startups, and how they're a different company than a startup from 5 years ago, that kind of stuff. So I asked it, I uploaded, I said, analyze. And then I said, give me a transcript. And on the analysis, it broke it down very nicely. But at the end, it said, by the way, since you're doing co-hosting this event, this subject would fit very well into your event. Would you like us to create a presentation? I'm like, what? It really blew me away. I don't know if you guys are on it now or not, but it's like, it's two parts, one part amazing and one part kind of scary. But between the rate sheet thing and now this, it's beginning to be really critically important to figure out how to use these things for each of you, each person. And it's starting to make it even easier and easier to do that. And of course, with Google, it has all these connectors and data that you've over the decades have been feeding, basically, which is that's the best training data that you can get. And it's really putting each of these dots together and creating a full-blown line that actually means more, because the context is actually in all this stuff that they have at their disposal. Is that something that smaller businesses are overlooking, the power of these things to do the rate sheet stuff, the contract stuff, just the general LLM that they built out of your data, that kind of stuff? Are small businesses not getting to that level of what AI can do because they're still focused on creating 10,000 red pairs or something like that?
I think that, yeah, there's a lot of it. I mean, that what you described, it's beta, it's something brand new. But it does show the power of what you can do. It is a little work. Like I tried, doing some stuff. Like I had like rates already kind of came up with them using AI last year. And I had new people come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'm interested. And so what I did is I took those rates and then I put it, put this into an email format. Okay. All right. Now put it for this company. And, I'm reading through it and I'm like, oh wait, don't promise that. No, take that out. I do not want you to, no, don't put that in. So, even though it can save a lot of time, and yeah, it did. I would have been spending days on that on myself. You still got to double check, you triple check, just to make sure you're not promising the moon. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, here's a rock. But yeah, there are a lot of opportunities. I could imagine like some like shops, and stores that could probably do the same thing that you did, and it being like, well, I'm noticing that you're selling a lot of this and a lot of this. Have you thought of expanding your inventory to maybe include this, and this? There may be some businesses like contractors or something like that, to where it's like, I've got nothing for you. Maybe a few small optimizations, but I mean, most of your work is in doing the work itself. So I can't really save you much time. I guess it just depends on the business itself.
Yeah, I think businesses are still kind of discovering the organization part that they need from and I've talked about this before, like with Claude projects and custom GP. There's a lot you can do with it. I think you are limited, the limitations by the imagination, what you can actually get done. I think the organization part will come through this year a little bit more than others. We've sort of had about 2 years now of AI, amazing, and AI can do all this stuff with images, and AI can do all this stuff with video. But I think the workflow part is still coming around a little bit, and that's just part of that is messaging. Because I think so many of the AI solutions that small business owners hear about, they sort of hear about video, and they hear about the sexy stuff, the things that really get people's ears and eyes going. But it's when it comes to paperwork, it's just like it's just stuff that they kind of don't want to think about. But I think with AI now, there's a lot of good options now that will help them get certain things done faster.
Excellent. All those things. And Pierre, you just brought up what I was thinking about all this week, and I was reading up some studies and different things and stuff about AI in the news and adoption. And it really hit me that it really is all about workflow. The real advancement is going to come in the form of workflow, which is why perhaps these large enterprise organizations are so much more excited about it. I think they have a better handle on their workflow because they have these large computer systems, and they have teams, and if you're honestly, let's see, the smallest company I've ever worked for was maybe 40 million. You got to have workflows. These are manufacturers. You have processes. You have all of these things. So, but if you're a small business, it's those types of things like you were talking about, Brent, these insights. Like one of my complaints, I was just talking about CPAs. All a CPA is going to do for you is keep you legal and do your taxes. But I had this like amazing bookkeeper who could do these things and spot these patterns and say, hey, you're doing all this work. It's costing you X amount of time, X amount of money. You can put this into a bundle and sell it as such and such, right? It's those types of what we would call managerial insights, leadership insights, where I think small business owners are really going to benefit. But you've got, now to Leland's point, you have absolutely positively got to know your business. You cannot just hand this thing on. I have a question for you, Brent.
Sure.
I don't have access to this beta thing, but when you were saying it had things connected to, now I do have it. I have been using Gemini a lot this week in particular. I've been using a lot of Gemini, and I have connected it to my files in my Google Workplace. But whatever this intelligence thing is, it's very different because I tried having it do some of that integrated thinking by prompting it a certain way, and it would not do what you got. So clearly there is something happening with that beta that's very, very different, because that was my question. How is it different than having your stuff already connected? And I can see that when I was asking it things, simple things, right? Like every small business, I thought I was organized, and I consider myself to be organized online. But even I have files that maybe mention certain people or certain programs. So I'm just going to bring up some marketing people. Like I like Frank Kern, right? He's a great copywriter and he does great stuff with emotional copy. To your point, Brent, over the last 25 years, I can't imagine how many different Frank Kern oriented documents are in my workspace. I bet there are dozens and dozens of them. I can search for things and find like 5 or 10. But like that type of thing would be so useful. I've asked it, like, go find these things. It found like 10 of them. And I know there are more than that. So,
you know what? I'm going to do an experiment now. You mentioned it, and now that this thing is working, I should be able to ask Gemini, who's the person I've communicated the most over Gmail with?
Oh, totally.
And it should be able to answer that now that it's. I'll try that experiment and see how that works.
I have seen that statistic somewhere before. Somebody has that. I don't know if it was something that they've done in the past, but that number should be out there. How are you going to know if it's correct? That's the best part.
I won't.
You
But
won't.
but if it gives me somebody that I know I communicate a lot with, then there's some validation there.
Could ask it top 10 and then give statistics. And like, give
Yeah.
me number of emails, give me number of replies, file sizes, and
Oh my goodness. And we studied this somewhere. I was involved in like turnarounds and those types of things for manufacturers. And one, of course, when they're doing that type of thing, one of the things that they look at is who should we keep and who should we fire, right? Well, one of the analyses that they did to do that was actually an email networking type of a map. Now, this is like back in the 90s, early 2000s, like when email first became a thing. And one of the things that they were doing is noticing who is receiving the most emails, like in terms of questions, and who's like who is in that networking node. And it's oftentimes, so it's not just by title, because that would be too easy, right? What they'll find is they found the hidden experts inside of these organizations. So if you're going to be acquiring a company or you're going to be doing these types of things, you want to know who are the people who keep the place going, who have that institutional knowledge or something like that, right? And the way they did that is by doing these email nodes. That's creepy, and that was like back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what is your currently right now? Oh, by the way, let me say hi to my buddy Frank Radis, all the way over. You're not in Sweden. You're in the UK.
But maybe he is in Sweden today.
Davos is. I know what he's answering. So I think I titled this, "Do you care about Davos?" And I said, "Do you even know where it is?" And he actually, okay. I took me a little while there, Frank. So that's his answer. That he's right. Frank is actually the best media person I know of in terms of the experience he spent. Like, Frank, if you're still there, you worked at NBC, ABC, CNN, like started some of the news programs with those. Yeah. So Frank, my guy, a Gilmore Gang guy too. Anyway, so I found, because I'm still very into this whole why are all the SaaS the software for service companies still getting killed in terms of their financial, their market cap and all that stuff versus like the other guys. So I'm not alone, because this venture capitalist, what's this guy's name? I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this guy, Tomas Tungus. Interesting. I mean, he must not even be in the States. I don't know, but he put out some stats about the stock prices of a lot of these software companies that we work with. Matter of fact, HubSpot, and he's saying this is just the year to date, how far they've gone down. It's only been like 3 weeks, right? The HubSpot is down 57%. Adobe is down 32%. Atlassian is down 54%. You can throw Microsoft in there too, because Microsoft has fallen off a cliff over the last month or so.
I haven't been paying much attention to Microsoft. How much has it fallen? Do we know?
Let me look.
You're talking. I'm surprised about HubSpot.
Actually, I'm not, because all these like Adobe and HubSpot and companies like Figma, Salesforce, they are viewed as companies that do a lot in terms of marketing and marketing automation, and a lot of the hype around AI has been aimed at those areas. Yeah. And so you could see a pattern there. ServiceNow is another company that has been hit really hard lately. And so it's become really noticeable to see all these enterprise software companies just getting killed. Well, they're not alone, but they have a lot of company. Matter of fact, who wants to take a guess at what percentage of software companies are down so far this year, stock price year to date? So it's just going back to January. What percentage of them are already getting killed.
Is this percentage of companies or percentage by?
No, percentage of companies, percentage of
Oh.
SaaS companies are already down pretty significantly year to date.
60?
I'm going to do my Caleb Williams airway surprise. Aim for a touchdown. Sorry, Brent. But
It had a good ending. That's all I can say.
yeah, well, okay. I would say it. I'm going to aim and say 53 or 54%.
There's the actual. So I used this yesterday.
14 to 17. Oh, and I was going to say 30 something.
No, the median in stock is down 14. So that's just like the median for every stock. But what overall, there's like 10,000. I'm just throwing out a number, 10,000 SaaS stocks. What percentage of them are down?
I mean, honestly, I don't know. I'm like 30. I was going to say 33%. I don't know. 64.
64.
It's because this AI bubble question is still tying itself around everything. And when it comes to like software as a service, that's kind of more on the marketing, that side, they haven't been able to sell their AI, or as I like to say, ROI story. Nobody is seeing any real money being made from all the talk that's going on.
Yeah, I get it. I think it's also, but I mean, we're talking about, it's a certain level of engineering that goes into what they're trying to get to now with the automation. It really is. And we saw this, and to be honest, analytics went through this almost a decade and a half ago, really. Because you had, at that time, you had people trying to figure out how do we measure to measure our performance, sales, marketing, and that type of thing. And it took time for that message to kind of sink in. We're only at year 3 of the AI story at a certain level, and it's just hard to kind of. I get why people are probably more upset about it, because we're accelerating everything, but it's still, at the end of the day, you still have this high curve at the very beginning. There's no real percentage, but it's a high curve or effort to adopt technology, and then the effort goes down over time. And I think that part is still there for everybody, whether you are the customer and client trying to implement it, or even in some cases for these SaaS companies trying to sell their variation of what the automation should be. And on top of that, I'm going to say this and end. AI is sort of like to the football now. I always give people, it's a football analogy. It's like a quarterback. You have to set up the plays that you want that quarterback to do. Otherwise, that quarterback will do Hail Marys all the time. And Hail Marys are wonderful at the end of the game, obviously, but you don't have to be a coach to understand that a Hail Mary on the first play is not exactly a good idea. It's a low percentage play. So I think there's a lot of sorting out that's going on, and it's somewhat natural, because we've seen this in tech before. I just think we're on this sort of accelerated curve because of the expense that people have spent, plus the AI hype that has grown in the last year or two.
Is this AI hype, even with all this marketing stuff, and hearing the bubble, talk about the bubble, and seeing these marketing tools that we all use are constantly, I'm not the only one following these numbers. So do you think all of that is hindering small businesses from really digging in and finding out and exploring how they can use AI to benefit what they do?
Please don't look at me as like some kind of like or doom and gloom person. If I'm going to stick with the football analogies, I will take that football from you, Pierre, and I'm gonna say it's all about fundamentals. Right now, what small business owners care about is cash flow. Cash flow, right? So in as much as this AI could help them cut costs, I don't know that they've seen that. I think they tend to be slightly later adopters, in as much as these tools can help them get more customers. that's going. So it's like fundamentals, like what was it? What was his name? Who used to say this is a football, right? So it, you know, any small business owner is going to look at cash flow, right? And that's why I was hung up on that Intuit study about money being delayed coming in. It's hard to make investments. I think that they've got pricing pressures. They've got, I believe in some other survey, they were complaining about the tax code, which I thought was kind of interesting. They were complaining about taxes. Um, I think the small business owners are concerned about the fundamentals. Like, I think they're going to just let all this AI stuff do its thing. And I must be the only person on the planet that is incredibly concerned. I think that we aren't paying attention to systems, and the systems that we're looking at have very, very, very long cycle times. So all the things that we're living through right now, I just saw who was it that put Reva did something about like there's going to be this small business boom. Like people are just going to start forming small businesses. Why? Because like right now it's the best way to make money. And my question is, and so like to whom exactly?
Yeah,
Right? Because
you've been asking that question for months now.
I am on this kick because I would like to know who's going to buy your stuff so that you can have cash flow, because that's what customers are. They give you money. So, there's only so many 1%ers, right? There's only so many 20%ers. And they can only purchase so many things. That leaves this population of people selling to each other, and I think that's the kind of thing small business owners need that AI to help them figure out.
Does that mean like AI to help them start the business? Because if we go off of the traditional, people get laid off, they have to find some way to make a living, make some money. Uh, they're not going to buy anything that doesn't fit need or whatever you're doing to try to make money currently. So there's not a lot of wiggle room for the basically for the economy. Uh, so as people get laid off and start a business, it doesn't feel like that's the optimum way to build a business.
No,
It's
but
just starting it.
the people are, I always say I have simplified, there's a marketing process, and I think this week it's like 7 steps long. I've consolidated down to 5, and the first 3 are the most important: market research, finding your ideal customer, and creating an offer, right? That's going to have them purchase it. But people are all the strategies and tactics and the fun things. That's like step 4. You're almost done. Step 5 is optimizing and fixing, right? So everyone is playing in step 4, but what AI is really going to be able to do, I want to harken back to this thing about your Google Workplace and some of these AI tools. Business owners are notoriously weak at market research, notoriously weak. It is the primary reason why small businesses fail. Because why do small businesses fail? Cash flow. Where does cash flow come from? Customers. Where do customers come from? Well, like knowing who you're selling to. And how do you know who you sell to? You do market research. So these systems have very, very long cycle times. But I think if they could learn how, if AI can be packaged, now I'm going to bounce over to Leland, if AI can be packaged in such a way that it's integrated into the tools you already use, just like your example with Gemini, that would be super helpful, because you've got to start somewhere. And tools like Perplexity can synthesize some of the studies that are already out there, but you got to know how to ask the right questions. And I think that's where organizations like SCORE, and what was the other one, the small business, oh my God,
SBDC.
SBDC, the one that John is always talking about, using AI as a supplement to help you work with actual expert people. I think that's where it's actually going to happen. Yeah, but I still would love someone to give me some positive opportunity regarding this thing that I'm so concerned about. Because yes, small businesses are going to increase, but I'm so concerned about small business failure because of everything that I just said. Who's going to buy your stuff? Somebody make me feel good about this. Where's Ramon when I need him?
When it comes to business, I mean, you always have to fill the niche. You know, it's like in my area, electricians. Oh my gosh, do we need electricians? Like it's going out of style. And so it's like I had a friend. He was learning to become an electrician. He was on his way to learn. And then he decided, no, I'm going to go and do tiling. Now he still makes a good living off of tiling, but he could have made a really good living off of being an electrician. And so it's just know your market. It's like if I'm going to be making pet rocks, there better be a really good market for pet rocks, or else I got a whole bunch of rocks that aren't selling. When it comes to AI and using it, and you talked about like small businesses utilizing it and stuff like that, and I am kind of afraid of it being taken away, like the rug pull or something like that, because all these companies are investing billions of dollars, and I think it was OpenAI was saying it's like we're not making money back off of this. We're billions in debt. We may have to start putting ads in our OpenAI accounts, you know, like you're midstream and it's like, this is brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends, you know, play this game, or you know, and that is probably a concern for investors. For any company, you got Adobe you were talking about, and it's like they are integrating AI throughout a lot of their products, but they're not increasing their price. And so it's like, how are you making money back off of that investment? You're investing billions of dollars. You haven't really increased your prices. You haven't made like well, if you want all these AI features, you have to buy the AI package or anything like that. And so I get it. I get why investors are probably cautious, because it's a lot of money. There's data centers going up everywhere. It's costing lots of money. It's disrupting multiple sectors. I know that the gaming community is ticked because of AI centers buying up all the computer parts, and what's being shown for it except better experience. I guess at this point it's just we're retaining our customers by offering the AI.
Leland, you're not making me any happier.
Nope.
This was not happy news. I want to hear opportunity. I want someone to say, Ivana, you are so completely full of it. I don't see anything you're seeing. It's going to be amazing. I want someone to tell me that.
I would say, okay, amazing. I would say the start would be amazing. I think the pivot is where you find a lot of struggle, because it's at that point, it's either the business is going out of business or they're pivoting to something else, which that can still be a good thing if it's something more profitable than what they started off with. I don't know if that makes you happy, but at least you should always, I think there's always hope when you start a business. That's always there. I actually, for Zamana, I always picked orange, because orange is what you see at the beginning of the day for a sunrise, and it's what you see at the end. If you had a bad day, you can still see a sunset, you know, and kind of be hopeful for the next day. I think you have to be hopeful when you go after things, but I think you're right at a certain level. I agree with you that there's going to be a little bit of struggle, because I think the message of starting a business has been hammered into people's heads, but that message is a very one-dimensional message, and it has to be, you know, you brought up a good point about market research, figuring out, you know, it doesn't have to be something extensive, just figure out what people are buying. And I think what we'll see is there's going to be a lot of people trying it out, but I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to get smarter faster, because they realize that they can't hustle is good, but you have to hustle in a certain direction to make something work. And that direction is being told by your market and how sustainable that market is for you to get on that runway and get going.
And
so
it may be plumbing. I think, thank you, Lee, for bringing that up, right? Because I think this is something Brent talks about a lot. People think that they want something slick and glamorous, like being a YouTube or TikTok creator. Like that's like super cool. Well, the real money is in the mundane. And I can tell you from, when they've had, whether it was during World War II, when the first round of Eastern Europeans came in during the Industrial Revolution, during World War II, and then during the war in the 90s, especially in the 90s, because I was like all grown up. I can't tell you how many professionals, you guys know, from Uber drivers and taxi drivers, how many people I have talked to who were doctors, lawyers, executives, who had careers in their home countries, who are now driving cabs, rehabbing kitchens, doing plumbing, doing heating. And I think we can learn from that there is some disruption that's going to happen, and we absolutely have to go to where the market is. And it may not be the sexy, glamorous thing you were hoping for.
Yeah.
So that means you don't feel better?
It's all on you, Brent. Make me feel, I mean, I want to. Like scientists say, when you're forming a hypothesis or something, and then you're going through that process. I am looking ardently, what is the word that I'm after, for something that tells me that starting a business, that when people start these businesses, because a lot of them are going to be freelancers and consultants and and web developers and copywriters and project managers, those types of things. Like, who's going to buy that? Coaches, right? Who going to buy your 5-figure coaching program? Like, from what exactly?
It's a reckoning of trying to figure out what is the outcome from what's being offered. I think that's what's happening much more. It's much more of it's okay. It's not. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think that the challenge becomes trying to figure out what things may work for your business. And like Leyland said, it may be pet rocks. It might even be a combination of pet rocks and tubby beds.
Pet rocks and laundromats.
And yeah, exactly. While you're getting your laundry done, check out our wonderful collection of pet rocks. I mean, people have come up with combinations of things that has worked out pretty well. Think of it as donut and donut hole. You're figuring out what's your donut and what's a donut hole that might work for you. And I think that it will keep people from burning out. I'll say that much, because I think with side hustles, I get it, but I think there's a tipping point where you don't want this split so much of your time at certain things. I'll say this personally, when I started my business, I tried to be very strategic about things that I was tacking onto that still required me to lean in on the analytics, to lean in on web development, because a lot of times you have to talk about code and explain it. I'm an adjunct this year at 2 universities, because they've asked me to come teach and talk about a certain subset of those programming that gets into, that is part of analytics and AI and a lot of the put together of it. So you have to pick things, I think, that makes it easier on you as an entrepreneur, rather than splitting it so much that becomes stress. You're chasing a dollar just from that point. It needs to be something integrated to something that to even this point, you've researched the market. You have a couple of things that you can build around that thing, and keeps things together. So that way, going back to what we talked about for cost, you're not spending a whole lot trying to hold things together. I can tell you a couple of people who did Uber, and I can tell you one person who did Uber, and they found out very quickly that wasn't for them, because the cleaning of the car and trying to keep it wasn't worth the dollar they were getting. But I also think where they were, if I was an Uber driver in Las Vegas, that might be worth something a little bit more, because you have more traffic from where they were. They were in Indianapolis, which isn't bad, but the number of people who visit for Las Vegas, that traffic and that need has to be different in that area rather than Indianapolis. And we're going to see more comparisons like that going on.
Do you think, though, the reason that maybe not just us, but a lot of small businesses or business people are kind of feeling like even is, it's not the kind of the blame or the impetus is on AI, but it's actually a bigger thing. Like, I'm I'm trying not to be political, but when we spend a lot of time on stuff that doesn't really seem to make sense, like we're gonna take over Greenland, and it takes the focus off of real meat and potato issues, like the healthcare costs or the affordability. We're kind of sucked into this thing over here where nobody was even thinking that was an issue.
And I think that was my point. And maybe I'm too much in my bubble. I'm not saying that bigger issues are not important by any stretch. Global issues are important, all kinds. I'm all for it. And national security, I'm all for all of those things. It's just that my bubble consists of real people in real towns who are trying to feed their families and who are trying to put their kids through school and who are trying to do like everyday things, right? And they're asking me questions and reaching out and looking for answers. And about the only thing I have seen, and of course I try to show them how to use AI to supplement their weaknesses and to help them develop these workflows so that they can kind of save some money on the one side and get new customers on the other side. Because it's almost like I want to lose weight, eat less, exercise more, same thing, right? I want to be profitable. I want to have money, cut your costs as much as you can and try to get as many profitable customers as you can.
I think the bit with the tariffs is a big weight because it introduced shifts in people's expectations in the market about what they can spend. And we hear it from the big automakers. There's a lot of, it depends on who you're talking to. I think Dodge just got rid of one of its cars, the Hornet, because it was being built in Italy. It's part of the Stellantis group, so they had to get rid of that. Think about all the suppliers that probably would have been, even the good cars built in a foreign area, foreign land. When that's shipped over, you still have people who have to have parts for that thing, and it shifts a lot of logistics for people that may not be of help. And I know that there are other instances where when prices have gone up, if you're not quite a small business, but maybe say a medium-sized business, and you have some strings to that, it's an impact. So I would say it can be a worry, to be quite honest with you. And it's an honest one. So
because those people are connected to these small businesses that everyone's going to jump into. It's these manufacturers and these companies that we're talking about who do hire these freelancers and these web developers and marketing people and so on and so forth. So it's a trickle down.
I guess that's why it's like, instead of going after like a career in like logo design, web development, so some of the white collar, always look for, again, and I've said it, and just like find the hole in your community and fill it. It's like I live in an area where there's one laundromat. Probably be a good idea to start up a laundromat. I've wanted to do storage units because that's a really good passive income. There are so many storage units in our area that it's just not a feasible thing here. But if I go maybe an hour away, maybe a better opportunity. And so it's just, doing that. But I do think that, a lot of the companies out there have made it so much easier. It's so easy to just start a business now. You can go to was it Legal Rocket? Zoho has a thing where it's like they'll file all the paperwork for you, and then of course, like put up the website and email and stuff like that. It is just so easy to start a business now.
But how easy is it for you to stay in business after you start the business?
Well, if you pick the right field, pick the right business, it's easier in some fields than it is in others.
But one I've heard, boy, I'm so glad you brought that up, Leland. One I've heard that could be a nice little hybrid for folks who are maybe coming out of management, project management, anything like that. There are a lot of people who are electricians, but really struggle with getting customers, keeping customers, scheduling. There's a lot of administration work that goes on with that. I've heard of several people starting very successful businesses where all they do is handle the scheduling. Yeah. It's basically computer stuff and project management. and I guess a little bit of just management in general, right? And they are now recruiting. I don't know if they're employees or if they're 1099s, but they are people who are skilled at whatever it is,
Mhm.
right? Whether it's electricians or HVAC or like handyman services, that's a big popular one here, right? Where that way you're good at doing things, but you might not feel comfortable running that whole business. Well, if you are a professional that has maybe gotten laid off or want to start your own business and you're good at something like that, there are opportunities where you could hybridize these types of services in towns and put your skills to work.
Yeah.
Wow, we went pretty significantly over, but that was an interesting conversation. And yet, do you feel any better now, Ivana? No.
I don't know. Time will tell. I love Piers talking about the name of his company, right? The orange from the sunrise, the orange from the sunset. You know, the sun will come out tomorrow.
Thank you, little orphan Ivana, for at least making us laugh.
The snow will come down. How about the snow will come down tomorrow?
The snow will come down tomorrow.
I would love the
That's your
snow.
bottom snowflake that tomorrow.
Pierre,
I'm worried about the ice coming down tomorrow. I don't know about the snow.
Pierre has dulcet tones.
Yeah, we are missing the original dulcet tone part of the conversation. So, anyway, any last thoughts before we close it out for this week?
A lot is going on. Be hopeful. Stay on track. Do your due diligence on how you're running your business. Just pour it into it. It's another week, another good time to try to dig in as best as you can.
Nice.
Don't be afraid to pivot if you're in a downturn. If you're in an industry where you're starting to see less in sales or something like that, don't be afraid to add in some inventory or expand where you're working from. That's going to be the biggest boon to your business, is the ability to be flexible.
Well,
I've already given mine. Focus on the fundamentals. That's all I'm going to say. Don't let any AI talk, Davos talk, political talk get into your head, right? You have customers who have desired outcomes. Go make them happen.
That was good. It was. I like that, because sometimes it's easy to let all these outside things kind of get the best of you. And really, if you just are able to keep that up here and keep focused on what's important, that stuff becomes less relevant. So I agree. And go Rams. That's probably my final.
Go Rams.
And hopefully we'll be back. Hopefully everybody will survive the next week or so and be back. So, because we all know next week there'll be a whole new set of things to talk about. So we hope to talk about them and hope to hear from y'all as well. So have a great and safe weekend and see you next Friday.
Take care, everybody.